Let's go right into it. We think we have Kiera on the phone to start us off today with a question about a second date. That's interesting. Kiera, what's going on?
Hi there.
Hi.
I've been on the dating scene for about a year and a half now, after an almost 7-year relationship. And one of the things that I'm running into a lot is the ask of the second date and me not necessarily being interested in a second date. So I'm always curious, like what kind of shelf life requires having to verbally or through text or whatever, like essentially reject them. I don't know. Do you just say no thanks, I'm not interested, or is like fading them or ignoring them appropriate after only one date?
Ooh, interesting.
Wow, very good
Oh,
question.
that's a great question.
Yeah.
We may have some answers for you, but I think we're going to want to know a little more. Kiera, sort of from recent history, can you give us a sense of what kind of first date is causing you to be in this need to reject the second date?
Like what happens? Like what is it about them necessarily?
What about it? Yeah. What about the date
Ah.
or the potential relationship doesn't seem to suit you in the first go round?
You know what I honestly look for is just a spark. You know, if there's an attraction, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be physical, but just a spark. You know, something that excites me about them. And again, in my past relationships, it hasn't been like, oh, he's really smart, so I like him. You know, it's been like, oh wow, for whatever reason, I find you very intriguing and exciting. You know, and there's never been a rhyme or reason, but I know what that feels like, and so when I don't feel it, I just kind of step away and say next.
Sure. Which is a valid option.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one thing that I notice listening to you talk is like that it feels very familiar. That idea of like there's something I am interested in you, I'm not interested in you, I'm not totally sure why, but it clicks or it doesn't. And one thing that I've been learning for myself is just working on carefully identifying what is actually causing that switch.
Yes.
And why I am making those decisions, because I completely get your feeling of like there is no rhyme or reason, and I want to challenge you on it and say I think there is, and I think it's something that you can work on, is your awareness of what's setting you off in that direction.
What do you think, Kiera?
and I think that there are definitely qualities I look for in a person, and I'm not necessarily sure if I'm just not giving people the benefit of the doubt, or there is also that aspect of like being nervous of progressing and having to have them fall a little harder or hurt a little harder. But all of that kind of, I think, comes out of my last relationship and how that all ended, and my fear of like rejecting people or hurting people.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you have, it sounds like you're anticipating a lot of baggage and a lot of trouble with these dates. I mean, I wonder what your experience is like in the first date. How much are you really, are you going for getting your questions answered and figuring out if you're going to be satisfied or not on your first date? Or do you think you just make a snap decision and, how much do you really look at it?
That's a really good question, and it kind of brought me to another place in my mind where I don't really even know what I'm looking for at this point. I have no goals of marriage, but I do want companionship. And I guess in our society today, I don't really know what that looks like, and I don't really know that that creates like a future in other people's minds, because it certainly isn't as like infinite as marriage, and that ultimate whatever people are seeking. But I feel like relationships in general are finite, and it might just be that attitude that makes me walk into these dates with doom in my mind. So you ladies have a very good point. It might just come down to my own attitude of what dating is and what a relationship looks like, and my worry that, hey, this is going to end eventually, so why even delve deeper now?
I find it, I don't know, I understood when you said, I don't really know what I'm looking for in a guy. When I fairly recently became single, Kate gave me the tip to create, I don't know how you phrase it really, but like a list of the qualities that I think that are really important to me, whether it be wants to have kids, doesn't smoke, all the way down to is, emotionally reliant or whatever, so just a wide range of things that are really important to me in a man, even like I prefer him not to be 5'2", so like just kind of a wide range of stuff. So I think that would be a really cool, interesting place for you to start to really explore what is it that you like, what is it that you don't like, what do you want.
Yeah, and that goes really well along with, the identifying of what is turning you on and what's turning you off. Because, there are times for me when I think, oh, this sort of checks everything off on my list, fits the boxes, but I'm not into him. In that case, what's wrong with my boxes? Or where do I want to, there are two ways. Either, my boxes aren't right and I need to relabel what I'm looking for, or I need to consider, maybe my interest, my cue of I'm into him or I'm not is off. And I should work on, another date with someone that I don't get the cue that I'm interested in again, because maybe that's something that I want to work on and pursue.
And I think what you both said teases up what for me is like the central point of dating. Yes, I want to be married someday. Yes, I want to have a partner and a family. And I'm perfectly aware that I don't really know what I want. And that what turns me on is not necessarily what's going to be the best for my life long term. So I'm just clear that I'm in the dating game as a dating game. That every date is an opportunity to clarify what I want, what I don't. I feel pretty free to say yes to a lot of dates that might not meet criteria on face, and to even say yes to a second meeting. And a guy friend who's done some of our work here said to me in response to a Facebook post once, I consider the first date a meet and greet. And that frame kind of changed sort of who I'm willing to go out and meet and greet with. Because you could be, even though I'm dating with the purpose of finding a romantic, marriage, lifelong partner, I've made friends through my dating. Even very recent history, I went on a date where I wasn't sure if I wanted to be pursuing the person or as a date or a job hire. It was someone who had a set of skills that we could use around here. And I just said, we should meet up and have a cup of coffee. Bring your resume. I thought it could have gone either way. And
I didn't know about that.
Both would have been tricky. That's maybe above my skill level.
Always learning and growing.
It's become fairly clear. We're going to have a nice little hangout friendship. We've had, 2 times that we've gotten together. And so I said yes to the second outing. And it's clear from that this isn't the most nourishing, person for me to be pursuing in a dating way. There are a number of signs against it. But it refined a couple things for me. There are a couple things now that are on my list, things that were kind of little niggling concerns in the first couple conversations, and then by date 2 it's really like, yeah, that's a problem, and I wouldn't have had them on my list before. So I don't know if I would say that the job is really to say no to the second date if it's not a spark automatically. I think there could still be value in it, and value for your own learning about dating. And I don't know the particulars of your life situation. If you're trying to fit like one date a week into a 50-minute time slot that you have available for this activity, you maybe need to be a little more selective than I'm being in my, acceptance for 2 rounds of dates. But if you have the flexibility to look at the people you're dating as potential friends, potential employment contacts, potential people to network you into other groups of friends, potential people to tour the city with or explore different interests with, you've got room to play. And to use them all to explore what you ultimately want. What do you think, Kiera?
I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think that through a lot of your questions and advice, I kind of took a little bit of a better look at myself and what it is I'm, and just really defining what it is I'm looking for, because I guess it's very hard to hit the goal when you have no idea where you're going.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's an interesting take, and I don't think that I've listed the qualities I'm looking for in a guy since like the age of 19,
Yeah.
and so maybe revisiting that is a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like the way that you're speaking now, you even sound a little bit different. You know, Kate said the word game a lot, and I think, you know, a lot of this is for you looking at this as a game. You know, Kate said playground. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
This is some place to play, and maybe you'll jump off the swings and fall down. Maybe you'll, you know, I don't know. Maybe it'll just be the coolest thing you've ever done. So I don't know. I just encourage you to go ahead and play.
Yeah.
Try a lot of different things.
Yeah. And I do.
Yeah. And also, I like the idea of the meet and greet because it takes a lot of pressure off.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I started doing was like not accepting necessarily first dates that are like dinners, but like being like, why don't we grab
Definitely.
coffee? Because when I started doing that, I started feeling less obligation to like go out again or
To
to talk to
reciprocate.
them afterward or
Yeah.
even to hang out after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And
Okay.
I do, Kiera, I want to go back to, another question you asked at the beginning of, when do you need to say no versus ignoring? And I really just wanted to sort of bring it back to you and say, well, what's feeling right to you? And really, where is that question coming from? I know I've had that question, and I know where it comes from for me, so I kind of want to see where it comes from for you.
Well, I think I know exactly where it comes from for me. It's just, I wanna play this dating game. I want to find a companion. I want to do all of that, and I have this like forever doomed sense that like, it's not going to last. Whether it lasts 3 months or 3 years or 7 years, like my last one. Even through my entire 7-year relationship, in my last relationship, I knew in the back of my mind it was going to end at some point. And I loved him, and I still love him very much. And there are some bittersweet endings there, and that's all well and good, and whatever. But I really had to hurt him to like sever it. And I hate the idea of, I guess, essentially rejecting people because I don't like people feeling awful just because I didn't think that they were a good partner match for me.
Yeah, I really understand that one, Kiera. I mean, for me, I know that I also have that same concern, and it comes from just thinking that I have to take care of everybody else, and often then forgetting that I'm in this for me, and the only person whose reactions and feelings and lifestyle that I can really have control over is my own. And so, like the purpose of going on these dates is for myself and not for the other person. It's lovely if it works out in that way where both of us are satisfied and like really love it. And sometimes it's not, and I've done the, walk out in the middle of a date thing. Not even get to the point of asking for a second date. I've also done the, kind of trail off without giving a response. And then it's also really cool to just be able to say, no, I'm not interested.
Right.
So there's a lot of wiggle room, I think, in, the way that you could be responding.
Yeah. And I would just really encourage you, Kiera, to just be curious about yourself in it. Because for me personally, it's like all I want to do is trail off and ignore them because I don't want to face the rejecting them. So when I'm seeing how much fear I face to actually do the rejecting, that's how I know that the right step for me to do is to reject them directly, as directly as possible to their face or in a phone call, really, because I'm not even doing it because I'm necessarily sure that it's the right thing or the kinder thing or the thing that they would want, but I'm doing it for myself, for my own practice and growth and being honest and direct and clear. And I know that through just really listening to my own fear about it. That's how I know it's the right step for me. So I just encourage you to pay attention to yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Some specific markers that came up for me as you both were talking were if I feel disrespected,
Yeah.
if I feel unsafe, as in I've caught myself having the feeling I don't want him to see which direction I'm walking home. That's definitely grounds for no second date. And then if I don't feel like I grew from the interaction, but I generally have kind of a wide tolerance, as I was saying earlier, or like a feeling that I can learn and grow from every interaction. And I will just say to your point, Kiera, about thinking that all these relationships are going to end and very much being present to the hurt around that, there's just a reality to that about relationships, romantic and otherwise, that the majority of them are going to end. If you think about the number of friends you're going to carry with you lifelong, it's way more the case that you're going to meet people, you're going to, fit each other's purposes and interests for a time, serve each other's learning and growing and needs for that point, but then they'll eventually sort of cycle out more to the fringes, or you of the fringes of their, relationships, and that's the nature of the thing. And so I feel sad hearing you talk about, rejecting them on face because there's some future rejection coming. Because if that were the rule, then, you would never let anyone in, ever. Because the majority will end. So there is just, I think, like an internal kind of coming to terms with, the fact that friendships are going to grow and change. Romantic relationships are going to grow and change, fade and die and grow. And, hopefully there'll be one or a couple that, last a long time. And that's, you take risks in order to get that payoff, I guess, is the reason we play.
Yeah.
But I just don't want to ignore that truth. That's what's happening out there. And I think being honest about that frees you up to be honest in so many ways in the context of your relationships, to be saying, you know what, I just, I don't think we passed the chemistry test. What else is there for us, I like the conversations we've been having. I'd love to keep talking to you, but we're not going to date. And just, to be straight about where you really are at the end of any exchange.